have a tendency to not just burn our metaphorical candle at both ends, we tend to just throw it in the furnace. How do we then, as teachers, ensure that we are just as concerned with our own mental health and well-being as we are with that of our learners? Today, I'll be discussing how to manage your own mental health during your early years of teaching and beyond, how we can recognise the signs of that decreasing mental health and well-being in yourself and others, how we can identify and work with those ever-important support networks to help you recognise when your emotional well-being and mental health are suffering, and how to embed good habits to build your resilience and develop into the teacher that you want to be. Now, when we talk about surviving and thriving, what we need to think about are several things. Now, are you thriving or are you surviving? Be truthful. In the evening, are you exhausted and just happy to have made it through yet another day? Are stress and worry, rather than joy, peace, and passion, fueling your life? Well, if you've answered yes to any of those things, you're probably surviving and not living in a state of optimal well-being. And there's a huge difference between surviving and thriving. Survive means to continue to live or exist, especially in spite of danger or hardship, whereas thrive means to prosper, be fortunate or successful, and to grow or develop vigorously and to flourish. So which one do you think you are? They're just going to say a quick good morning to Noam, to Watermaid, who've joined us. So good morning all. Thank you for joining us this morning. When we're looking at surviving, survive mode is characterized by a few things. Now, when you're surviving, you're choosing the path with the least resistance. You're experiencing lack rather than abundance. You're reacting rather than responding. You tend to complain and blame others for your circumstances. Sometimes you might feel inauthentic or a little bit stuck. You might fear failure, viewing it as a sign that things are going wrong instead of seeing it as a necessary part of success. Thrive mode is characterized by what psychologist Martin Seligman refers to in his book Flourish as experiencing PERMA. That's positive emotions, engagement and flow, positive relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. So again, where are you? Are you a survivor or are you a thriver? Let me know in the chat. Now, when you start any new job, it can be a daunting task to get to know the culture and context of the organisation. And some of you will have returned to work this week, some of you in new schools, others will be starting a new school in the coming week. And it's true in any organisation that it can be a new experience to get to know the culture and the context, but it's especially important in teaching. Those starting out in their careers or those moving schools are faced with the challenge of getting to know new learners, new staff, new colleagues, and a new working environment. And there's a lot that you can do to prepare yourself for your teaching placements or your new teaching post, starting your first ever teaching job, or moving schools for a new position or promotion. Hassan has said that mainly a bit of both, surviving and thriving, and I guess that's true of all teachers. Some days we are more than definitely thriving. We come home, we're filled with joy, excitement. It's been a brilliant day, the little wins, the joys of teaching. Other days we can just be happy to have made it to 3 o'clock or 3:30, depending on when your school finishes. And just be like, oh man, I'm glad I made it through yet another day. And it's important to recognize that there will be both of those elements in your job in every day. So we are going to be discussing a little bit more how we do those things. Okay, Hassan, you've joined us. Welcome. Thank you for calling in.
Hello, hi.
And how are you? You said you feel that you are both a survivor and a thriver.
Exactly. First of all, my name is Hassan and I'm from Somalia. We're really available job right now currently in the market.
Right.
So I am a university lecturer at a very young age. I'm just 30, and
Wow, what
it's
an achievement.
I've
Well
been
done.
yeah, yeah, thank you. So I'm really feeling like I'm going through both. I'm thriving and also um I'm struggling. I'm surviving.
Yes. Do you think the pandemic has had an impact on the balance between your levels of thriving and your levels of surviving?
Definitely. Um before the this COVID-19 before 2019, I think things were going pretty smoothly for me. I was thriving. I was like, things were looking up for me, and also I was getting connected with the students and the university management and everyone I worked with. But after the pandemic, things have changed. Like students had the opportunity to, to stay at home, do whatever they want, hang out. Like, do not listen online classes. Skip classes sometimes, do
Yeah.
poorly in the exams, and when we returned back to classes, things have totally changed, and things were not the same anymore, and students were not as enthusiastic as they used to be.
Yeah.
Um, and things are challenging a little bit right now. And people are even financially struggling. You might see some students like complaining financial problems at the university. And also, I work at a school of my own in the afternoon. I receive 3, 4 complaints related to finance every other afternoon, and it's not really. I don't. That's part of the stress, and that's part of the struggle. um, and
Definitely.
and
Yeah.
sometimes you have to give up for some of your salary or some of your earnings to help out a student who is really in need, because the government, the current government, is not really helping the students, or
Yeah.
giving them scholarships and all of that. So it's pretty tough here.
Oh, well, it does sound incredibly challenging. Thank you for calling in. And I think it's really important for everybody to notice when they're in thrive mode and when they're in survive mode. Are you just about to start the new academic year, or have you gone back already?
No, I think we have 10 days to go for the vacation right now. 10 days are remaining. After 10 days, we'll be returning back to the university. Classes will restart.
Okay. Do you think that going back in the new academic year with sort of the changes, and let's all hope we're on our way out of COVID now, but do you think it will change the situation when you go back? Are you
I'm really
hoping
hopeful.
yeah, hoping
I'm
it'll be more
I'm
thriving?
optimistic this year.
Okay,
I'm
excellent.
optimistic this year. Things to change. Always you have to expect for the better,
Yeah,
not for the worse.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you very much for calling in. Some great comments there. We have a request for you to speak to one of our illustrious team here at Teachers Talk Radio. You'll see that in the chat. I'll leave it there with you for now. But thank you for calling in.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so as Hassan said there, we go through phases of being both a thriver and a survivor at all points during the year. And I think a lot of us are optimistic and are remaining hopeful that when we go back in the coming weeks, actually we'll be more in thrive mode than survive mode. I think several of us have been operating in survive mode over the past 18 months, although I don't know about you guys, but it feels like about 6 years to me that we've been in this pandemic. Now, as I was saying about culture and context of a school, when you are moving schools or you're starting out in your first job, there's a lot you can do to prepare yourself for that. So if you're looking at starting a teaching placement, your first ever teaching job as an ECT, or maybe you're moving schools this year, perhaps for a promotion, get to know the school first. Each school is different, and it's a good idea to conduct some early research before you join to help you understand the culture of the school that you're moving to. Go through every page of the school website, read all the information that is available to you in the public domain. You may find that there are several school policies published there, such as the teaching and learning policy, behaviour policy, staff code of conduct. All of this will give you vital information about your school. Go and read the latest Ofsted inspection report and pay particular attention to what the school has done well and what it still needs to improve on. And these will give you some idea as to what the current priorities might be in your school and what expectations there might be. If you can, take a walk around the local community, because it will help you to understand that local context. Consider the socioeconomic characteristics of the area and how that might impact upon your role within the school, what experiences your learners are bringing with them to the classroom. It also enables you to scope out where the local shop is for those emergency supplies you might need. Be wary, though, of what's been written in local media, as it can sometimes be a distortion of what is really going on, but have a read through some recent news articles to see what the school has been involved in. And also check the school's social media. Most schools now have official Instagram, Facebook, Twitter pages. Using your professional rather than your personal social media account, follow these pages. You'll get a feel for the activity of the school and its teachers by seeing their social posts. As well as getting to know a new school, the prospect of meeting a whole new group of learners can also be daunting. And whilst data can only tell you so much about a class, it's a good idea to ask for some class data before you start, so that you can start to build a picture of the learners you'll be teaching. Thinking about the local context too, what's the demographic of your local area? Who are the community leaders? What role does faith have in supporting learners within their community? And how might this impact upon your teaching? Here you can think about diversity within your lesson resources. It's been said frequently recently that you cannot be what you cannot see. Would your learners see themselves within your lesson resources? So lots of things here to think about in order to prepare yourself to be a thriver rather than a survivor. When you understand where you are more able to feel confident and comfortable within your setting. The next thing I'd say, in order to be a thriver, is all about building those relationships. Now, people are strange, they're quirky, they're different. But one of the key challenges when starting anywhere new is to build relationships with your colleagues. Firstly, it's vital to form bonds with your department, from your fellow trainee or ECT to the head of department. You need to be building those relationships with these people from the outset. And this could simply be a train of email conversations prior to your start with the head of department, where you've asked for pieces of information that make your start that little bit easier. Or it could be the WhatsApp group chat with other ECTs or trainees that are starting at the school within your university group. Be sure to get involved with these when you go to your induction day. And you don't have to be massively involved in chatting within these groups, but there are lifelines sometimes when you're having those moments where you just need someone to talk to. They will prove to be vital as you move through the school year, but be mindful of bombarding your new colleagues with requests for information though. Some of us veterans are very much having a break right now in the holidays. Whilst we're all there for our colleagues, we also need a rest too, so that we can thrive with you in those coming years. The next thing I would suggest and talk about, and it's come through as a common thread on our Instagram and Twitter, is that you need to build time for yourself. Now, according to Education Support's latest research, 75% of all education staff have faced physical or mental well-being issues in the last 2 years. And that's no surprise with the COVID pandemic. And this is because of their work. And 53% have considered leaving. Almost 1 in 5 have said they had experienced panic attacks, and over half had suffered insomnia or difficulty sleeping. Over a third have experienced difficulty in concentrating. A workload and work-life balance were cited as the top work-related reasons. And last week I talked a lot about work-life balance. So if you want to hear more about that, go back and listen to last week's show. But symptoms and issues suffered appear similar across the levels of seniority and across roles and the different phases and stages. So this isn't restricted to one group of teachers, it's common across the whole profession. Of those who said they had experienced mental health problems, over half had said their personal relationships had suffered as a result, and over a quarter said they'd been forced to take time off work. And that's a strange phrase, I think, forced. They feel forced to take time off work. Sometimes as teachers, we are so reluctant to actually take a day off. We almost feel that we're obligated to power through any illness or any form of feeling unwell. And that's not good for us. We need to take that time. Listen to your bodies, listen to your minds. If it's telling you need a rest, sometimes you just need to take that break. And of the people who were surveyed, half had been off for more than a month during the academic year. So if you don't look after yourself early on and take that day off when you need it, you may be looking at a longer and more extended time where you have to rest. Good well-being is essential for cultivating a mentally healthy school, for retaining and motivating staff, and for promoting pupil well-being and attainment. If they're seeing a burnt-out, stressed teacher, they're not going to enjoy their lessons as much. And we all know that when we are not feeling our best, we don't always perform our best. Well-being is about our holistic health, including the physical and the emotional. When we have good levels of well-being, we feel that life is in balance, we can generally cope well, we feel motivated and engaged, we're resilient, we're able to deal effectively with daily troubles, as well as bounce back from life's challenges, which we'll always face. This is thrive mode. We can sometimes get to the point of burnout as teachers. It's a common illness amongst the profession. Psychology Today describes it as a state of chronic stress that leads to physical and emotional exhaustion, cynicism, detachment, feelings of ineffectiveness and lack of accomplishment, almost the survive mode that we described earlier in the show. Teachers are usually high achievers who like to work hard and are always looking for ways to improve. And these traits are commendable, but can mean that educators fall prey to perfectionism and do not leave enough time for rest and recuperation. You can do anything, but you cannot do everything. And so we're going to talk about ways to identify and prevent burnout. But first, it's going to take a little ad break.
Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful, and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club.
Okay, so when we're talking about burnout, as I said, it's a state of chronic stress that leads to physical and emotional exhaustion. It puts us in survive mode rather than thrive mode. So here are some ways to identify and prevent burnout. So what I would say is, if you're at the end of your first week back at school, you'll know what I'm talking about here. If you're about to go back to school and you're a veteran teacher like myself, again, you'll know what I'm talking about here. But first week exhaustion. When you start back at school in September, or whether you're starting as an ECT, or going in for the first time as a trainee, you will be hit with a truckload of information. Prepare yourselves. You will be tired, and I mean really tired, at the end of that first day and at the end of the first week. I often feel like I've been run over by a bus by the end of the first week. There's just so much to take in, so much to prepare for going into that first week. So the week before school starts, Start getting back into your routines. Set an alarm for the morning and slowly make it earlier each day so that it's not such a shock to the system on the 1st of September. And then relax when you get home. Do something you enjoy. Read a book, take a bath, go for a walk, but something to calm down your brain. And Hassan, you're right, eventually you do get used to it, but each year it's the same. Information overload comes in those first week back in September, those first days, and it can be a challenge. I'd also say bring in freshers flu. Those of us who have been university students will be aware of the freshers flu that you get when you're mingling with new people, you're away from home for the first time. It's a little bit like that in that October half term. It's intense. The first half term is a really intense half term holiday. When you get to October half term, you might feel a little bit like you've been hit by a bus again. That'll be where you start to relax. And then that's when the cold, the viruses, the feeling lethargic comes in. So I would say trying to eat as healthily as you can, ensuring you keep to routines and looking after yourself can all help. If it's your thing, Barocca, multivitamins, batch cooking food and ensuring that you've got your lunches prepared in advance. For your evening meals, like I said last week, get prepared, buy a slow cooker and have that snack drawer at work for those little energy boosts. I'd also then bring in what I like to call the long night. So for any Game of Thrones fans out there, the term back after Christmas, that January term, is a little bit like the long night. It's cold, it's dark, everyone's poor because, well, Christmas, we get paid early, and then that's a very long month. The month of January feels like about a year. It's the time of year with the highest number of staff absence, and it's also the highest for student exclusions. And again, this is generally because our communities, our families are also feeling the pinch from it being Christmas and the stretching out the pay. So it's a good idea to start planning ahead to how you can plan for January in advance. I spoke last week about leaving work at work, and it was a common thread that came through in our chat. It might mean you have to stay late in the building every day or a few days a week, but as far as you can, try to keep that separation of church and state. There needs to be somewhere in your home that's work-free, a place where you can properly relax, and beware of that pulsating briefcase, the Jumanji drums that might come from having your work in your house when you actually have no intention of doing it. Routines is the next thing. We talk about routines and rituals as the key thing to teaching, the key thing to managing behaviour, to setting expectations, to building outcomes in our pupils. It's just as important for adults as it is for children to have a routine that we keep to. Think about keeping to a regular bedtime, a regular wind-down time, ditch the screens at least 30 minutes before bedtime. Equally, keep that midweek yoga class or Saturday morning gym session. Make time that is just for you and that is protected. Protected you time is important. Keep at least one day at the weekend, if not the entire weekend, completely work-free. It is slightly unrealistic to think that teachers in general, but especially trainees and ECTs, won't work at the weekend, but you do need downtime and time to relax. If you're at a school that expects you to work over the weekend, consider whether that's the right environment for you. Expectation to work over a weekend. For me, I'm a head of faculty, I manage a team of people. I do not expect them to be working over the weekend. They need time with their families. I need time with my family. Someone chooses to work over the weekend, that's their prerogative, but it's not an expectation. If you have a family at home, whether that be you're living with your parents and have younger siblings, whether you live with a partner or whether you have children of your own, it's really important to put some time aside for them too. If you do have a partner who is not a teacher, they generally don't always get it. They don't always necessarily understand the pressures of our profession. Eventually they will, but it takes some time. It's also good for your own mental health and well-being, as well as maintaining that relationship. So if you can, try and leave the phone to one side or in another room whilst you're spending time with your family. Be present in the moment. Teaching is a big job, and it has the power to be all-consuming. I myself, I'm a live to work person. I love my job, and most teachers have this mindset. However, I still make a point of having time off at key points over the weekend to spend with my family and also my me time. So today, for example, well, even though it's still the school holidays, I will be going out to the hairdressers shortly after my show has finished and I've published the podcast. I'm going to spend a good 3 hours with the hairdresser and a good book. I'm reading The Murder Club by Richard Osman at the moment, so I'm hoping that I'm able to finish that book during my hair appointment. That's my aim, that's my goal. I'm just going to sit there and read, and that's my time. Meal times in our household are also protected. We eat together as a family and phones are banned from the table. No work is allowed until my little one has gone to bed. I have a daughter, she starts school this September. I am not quite ready for this. The last 5 years have just gone by in a blink of an eye. So I'm very excited to be talking to her about school, to be able to engage in those conversations with my child about her day, because she is equally, if not the most important person in our household, and she will tell you that she is the boss. My husband and I disagree, but we'll debate that at another time. Consider how you can plan your time to keep this time safe. And thank you, Kate, for your comment there. Lots of advice here just comes from my own experiences. And it's what I tell my ECTs. For those of you who aren't aware of my bio, I am the ITT and ECT induction lead at my school. This year I have 20 ECTs under my wings, 2 schools direct trainees and 2 assessment only route teachers who are converting their qualifications. So quite a big job. That's how it was at the end of July. And obviously this may change by the time we return next week, but I'm sure together we will have a successful year. And so it's important for me to make sure that I am balancing my time. Lots of people need me, but I'm a person, I'm a human first, before I'm a teacher, before I'm a leader, before I'm a manager. And my family is also really important. They need my time too. I do like the fact there, Watermaid, that you've agreed phones are banned on dinner time. So it is a great advice. It is a major hindrance in family relations. So you need to be able to talk. We have a family dinner, and when it is a family dinner, my daughter knows that she is to sit at the table. We wait till everybody's finished, and we have a conversation. We talk about our days. We talk about what we might do, what's coming up in the week, and it's that time for bonding with families. I mean, as a teacher, I see it all too often. There's children who eat by themselves, they're looking at their phones, they don't eat together as a family, and that for me is not how I want my child to be experiencing family life. I want her to see that you can go out and have a professional job and you can still have time for family and do it all. That's kind of how I want you to bring her up. So it's really key that you organise. I spoke last week about planning. Planning is everything. That's your life, your work, everything. You need to plan. And so that's how we work here. It's almost like a military operation in our household. The next thing I'd say to consider is your office hours emails. Some schools have really strict email policies. My own, for example. If you really have the urge to work in the evening, press save rather than send on those emails and keep it for the morning. Better yet, if your system allows it, like Gmail or the online version of Outlook, pre-schedule the email to go out in the morning, and be wary of working on remote classrooms like Google Classroom late into the night, because your comments and your posts are time-stamped, and we need to be setting good examples for our students as well. In my school, we are not permitted to send emails after 6:30 in the evening or before 7 a.m. And we are told that we should not be doing that if we do. Saying no is the next thing. Practice it. Say it to yourself in the mirror. It's okay to say no to things. As I say regularly, it's kind of my mantra. You can do anything, but you can't do everything. If you're feeling like you want to do a piece of work but need extra time, just say, I can't do that right now, but I can do it by such and such a date, and then plan it into your schedule. The next thing, as I spoke about last week, planning your time. Work out what you'll do in your PPA time or after school, and use your planner to write it down. I love a list. Writing to-do list is an absolute must. I would almost argue it's my hobby. They help keep you on top of your job list And also you get an immense sense of satisfaction when you can cross things off it. I actually like to put things on my list that I've already done or nearly finished, so that I can cross it off quickly, because when you start to see things going off that list, you get that more motivation, and you can then power through. Pre-plan and schedule when you're going to go out and observe other colleagues and stick to it. Make them a priority. Schedule your marking too. For example, in this hour, I'm going to mark year 10 books, and try to plan, well, you can try to plan a week's worth of lessons in advance. Not so easy at the start of term, because we're getting to know our classes, and the best plans and all that may not always work. But what you need to do is build those routines and rituals in those first few weeks. Zoom fatigue has been a major problem for many of us working from home during COVID-19. We're spending lots of time on video meeting applications, and the effects of this are taken by surprise. Having giant heads staring at us close up for long periods can be off-putting for a lot of us. Never mind that we feel we should fix our hair, put makeup on, get out of our pajamas. So yeah, hopefully Zoom fatigue is a thing of the past. Fingers crossed. Looking at some of the comments that have come through on Twitter and Instagram, some of the things that people have said about what would help them to thrive rather than survive is sharing resources, bouncing ideas with fellow teachers. So that's from Miss Chem 17. Thank you for that. I think this is really important. Being able to have those discussions with colleagues, just to talk things through. It doesn't even have to be joint planning. It doesn't have to be you're looking for someone to tell you the answer, but sometimes talking through an idea can be really beneficial. Charlotte on Instagram has said, recognizing the little wins or the funny moments. Absolutely. When you've had those small wins, you've managed to crack that class where there was the one child who doesn't conform or doesn't follow the routines and rituals, and then they've produced an amazing piece of work. Celebrate that. Be proud of that. It's okay to be absolutely proud of your work. Jodie on Instagram has also said a good night's sleep. Absolutely. What we need to be building in is that routine of a bedtime routine. And again, I've been living in routines for the last 5 years because, as I said, I have a small child in my household. But it's all about making sure you're relaxing in the evening just before you go to bed. Have that me time, have that downtime, ditch the screen half an hour before you go to bed, read a book, have a bath, sit in the garden and watch the stars. Do what you need to do. We've got here on the chat, we have a WhatsApp group for our department. They make some announcements, other times just meaningless posts, chatters on unimportant topics. So I feel so relieved since I deleted my WhatsApp. Yes, you're right. WhatsApp groups can become overwhelming, but they can also be a place to support. One of my tribes group that I call them, we have a WhatsApp group chat. We're a group of teachers. We're all virtual friends. We met via Instagram, and actually, we wouldn't have got through the last year without each other. It's a place where we can go and say, this happened today and it annoyed me, and we can all just go, yeah, that happened to me, and there's a place of support. But that's what works for me, and that's what works for us. It doesn't work for everybody. And yeah, Hassan, you make a good point. You might miss announcements, but sometimes if you feel the pressure to look at your phone, I don't know how many other people feel like this in the chat, but if you can see that you've got unread notifications on your phone, does that make you twitch? Does it give you anxiety? I've been practicing not reading my school emails or any emails actually over the summer holidays, and it got to the point where there was over 200 notifications on my emails, and I was starting to get a little bit twitchy that I hadn't read them. But actually, I just left it. And I felt an amazing sense of relief and achievement from not having looked at them. You don't have to read the announcements. You can mute a WhatsApp group, of course, if you want to, and just dip in when you need to. So it's all about balance and what works for the individual. There's no one right or wrong way. Jodie also said that targeted to-do list, which is a common thread that's come through, helps you to thrive rather than survive. But then a few other things that have come through from both Jodie and a few other people has been negotiation on appraisal. So target should develop you and not just the whole school. Millie said clear career development discussions with senior colleagues, also really important. So they've all come through Instagram. Let me know what you think. Do you think feeling valued by your senior colleagues, to being able to have those open discussions about where your career is going and how you thrive? Some people feel that thriving is about that progression and actually developing as a teacher. Other people see it from the holistic well-being point of view. So it's been interesting to see the different viewpoints that have come through. On Twitter, George said feeling properly valued by SLT and not just the teachers. Mr. Max said daily reminders that I'm not alone. And I think that's a really important point to pick up on. Sometimes we can feel really isolated. We can feel really lonely as teachers. We feel like we've not had that human conversation during the day. Imi said, give yourself something to look forward to, whether that's a meal, a catch-up, a film, the gym, something that you know you'll enjoy and will distance you from work. Another excellent point. We need to be having things that are the human side of us. As I said earlier, we're people first before we're a teacher. And whilst our career, our profession can be all-consuming, we need to remember that we're a person first. Some of us are wives, mothers, partners, husbands, brothers, sisters, carers. We need to make sure that we've got time for all of the elements, all the strands of our lives, as well as work. So Hala said, a decent lunch break and a quiet working space when not teaching. Absolutely. Make sure you're having lunch at work. It sounds ridiculous, but you need to sit down somewhere and eat your lunch, have some time off, eat properly, because if you're eating the wrong kind of food, you'll end up with energy crashes and you'll find yourself feeling so you're slipping into survive mode rather than thrive mode. English teacher said, getting in and around the kids as they learn. I'm so tired of having them behind a line. I've been relying on my visualizer a lot to see books. It's worked, but sometimes kids don't ask because it's more public. And again, I can't wait for these lifted restrictions in the classroom. I'm so excited to be able to go back and be a normal teacher, to not have to tell children, excuse me, can you move back behind the line, please? And have that over distance. I'm tired of not being able to walk around and look at books and talk to children. And I think that'll be common amongst a lot of people. Lauren said on Twitter, and I really enjoyed this comment more than you'll ever know, Lauren, good tea bags, coffee and fresh milk, not UHT. Absolutely. Nothing worse than walking into a staff room and seeing that Mellow Bird coffee, and apologies to anyone who enjoys Mellow Bird coffee. But the cheaper instant coffees that are really quick, really, really powdery, not my thing. I have actually stashed in a cupboard an espresso machine at school, and for certain people can get into the fancy coffee club and I will allow them access to my machine. But it's really important to have those decent drinks, and if it's not there in your staff room, it's not provided, I'm sorry about that. We actually do have fairly decent coffee and tea bags in our staff room, and sugar and milk, and we have an area where we can just go and make a quick drink. As someone to tell me to go home when I'm not being productive at 5 p.m. How many other people are sitting at work still at 5 o'clock thinking that they should be there, and being a massive procrastinator and not actually doing anything constructive with their time? Really, they should be going home. So I agree totally there, Lauren. You do need someone to say, right, now's the time to go home. Let's go. You're not being productive with your time. You need to go home and rest. We have Kneecaps Ruler, having actual conversations that aren't shop talk, and grow an understanding of each other's lives outside of school. Learn to, or actually appreciate, that we're all human with our own things going on behind the scenes. We are not automatons. Absolutely. Go and talk to those people, your colleagues, find out about them, find out about their lives, find out who they are. Going to take a quick ad break now, and I'll be back after with some more tips about keeping as a thriver.
Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. At Creative Resources, we've been rethinking what a classroom can be. We've created a huge range of more than 2,500 original and exciting resources that span across more than 15 different subject areas. Whether you're looking for primary or secondary level resources, careers options, PSHE, arts, or humanities, Creative Resources have the resources for you. We offer full curriculum packages and unique, challenging escape rooms themed on topics such as Shakespeare, Tudors, and fractions. We have quizzes, task cards, Tarsia puzzles, and lots more. Better still, more than 100 resources can be accessed for free. Just visit our website, www.cre8tiveresources.com. You can get 10% off any order you make on our website by using discount code TTRadio. Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful, and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club. Introduce.
Okay, I was expecting a short advert there. Apologies for that. Back to the topic of how do we become a thriver rather than a survivor. And I said before that looking after your well-being is one of the most important things. So everyone has their own de-stressors, the things that make them instantly relax and feel more rejuvenated. Some ideas for some immediate stress relievers are going for a 10-minute walk, just a walk around the block. Closing your eyes and take 10 deep breaths. We had Keep Them Out of Mischief last week on the show, who talked through some well-being activities and some mindfulness activities. So go back to last week's show and have a listen there. There's ones where you can just be present in the moment and know what's going on around you. You can also visualize a pleasing scene, like a calm beach or an event that you're looking forward to. Take a break from your computer screen or your phone or your television or your iPad. Put on some soothing music in the background. Do some colouring in. Get an adult colouring book. Repetitive motions like those used when colouring or cross-stitching or making jewellery have been proven to reduce anxiety. There are some great ideas for resources for taking mindfulness colouring to a whole new level online. So just have a quick search for those. Have a chat is the next thing. And it came through again, as we said, from Twitter. Kneecaps would have said go and actually have an actual conversation. But talking over issues you're having at work with a colleague or a mentor is a great way to resolve a problem. Sometimes just talking something out loud can help you untangle a tricky issue, and your conversation partner might help you see something from a different point of view. If you don't feel comfortable talking to someone at work, see if your school has an employee assistance program that can give you an objective ear to talk to. Reach out to your network on social media too. There are lots of us out there who are more than happy, willing and prepared to lend an ear. Sometimes not knowing the person in real life can actually be quite useful. Switch off your emails. I'm yet to do this. I can't bring myself to take my work emails off my phone. And this is largely due to the fact that when I'm out and about at school, as I said before, I'm in a sort of more senior position. And so I have to be out walking around the school. I'm not going to carry my laptop around with me, but our main communication method is via email. And so when I'm out and about, I keep my phone with me. I can check any emergent issues. I can get to where I need to be. But that does mean that when I come home, they're still there. Being available online 24/7 can open you up to communications that can leave you excited or stressed about work, which can shift the mood of your whole evening or your weekend. Nothing worse than reading that email at 6 p.m. on a Friday that just puts a stress on your weekend. It's important to set yourself a switch off time and make sure that students and their families know that you'll not be available, but that you'll get back to them as soon as your work day or week begins. Use those out of office email notifications that come with all of our email providers. And again, I've talked about it a lot, and I can't talk about it enough, really, but take care of your physical well-being. Lots and lots of studies, and we all know this. We talk to students about it with their exams, but we kind of do as I say, not as I do as teachers when it comes to looking after our physical well-being. Well, there's a close link between physical and mental health, and there's a plethora of articles on the internet providing tips and advice on how to nourish your physical well-being. But some of the major things to take care of include sleep. Adults in the 18 to 65 age bracket need between 7 and 9 hours of sleep a night. How many hours of sleep do you get on average? A good night's sleep can boost productivity during the daylight hours, so that you will be working smarter, not harder. Eat a balanced diet. Difficult, especially in the holidays. I'm straight for the snacks and the bad food at this point. But eating a balanced diet provides your body, including your brain, with the nutrients it needs to function properly. And don't forget to drink plenty of water. I am awful at remembering to drink water. I take a water bottle to work. A few years ago, a friend of mine, knowing that I love to hate Love Island, brought me a Love Island bottle, but put Mrs. Tricky on it for school. So I'm not going to use Mrs. Tricky at home. So yes, it's my school water bottle, which causes a lot of conversations with students. Miss, is that a Love Island bottle? Yes, it is. My friend bought it for me. I did not buy it. I have to put that disclaimer in there. But taking those water bottles in, having it with you, make sure you've got one. Page practice podcast, you put in their boundaries with WhatsApp. I was contacted on WhatsApp over a weekend once about an issue that didn't need to be dealt with there and then, and I found it intrusive. Yes, exactly. Setting those communication boundaries is really important. My faculty has a group chat, but we know that it's there for information. We don't have to use it. Quite often we will mute the group at a weekend. We don't just do work chat in there, though. That's the thing. We have our social conversations within that group. So it's a way of being able to have those conversations that we don't always get to have during the school day, and to have that catch up, to be people first rather than just teachers. Being active, again, is the next piece of advice about your physical well-being. Exercise produces endorphins, which sends a boost of positivity to your brain. We all tell our children, when it comes to revision, when it comes to exam season, when it comes to being smart about studying for GCSEs, that they need to be active. They need to be going out and doing exercises. But do we do that ourselves? How many of you, honestly, go out and keep an active life? Research suggests that 30 minutes of moderate to intense physical activity most days of the week can lead to an increase in mental functioning, including an increase in memory and learning ability. If you're short on time, or in my case, motivation, break your 30 minutes into 10 or 15-minute intervals. And I'm not talking about a circuit of the school here. I, on average, will walk about 9k just around the building at school. That's my average day at school, according to my Apple Watch, which counts my steps. So you can see how active I am during the day, but it's not physical exercise for physical well-being. That's just my general walking around school. So I'm quite lucky and fortunate in that nearby there's a lovely park to walk around, and I can do a nice hour's walk from my house. So find a route that works for you. Find somewhere where you can go have a little walk in an evening. Better yet, join a social sporting team to make new friends at the same time. Now, I give that advice out, but I also will say, with the caveat, this is my idea of hell, going to a sports club. I am the least sporty person that you will ever know. I'm about as sporty as a teaspoon. So for me, that wouldn't help my physical well-being. It would make me feel anxious, stressed about going for that. So find something that works for you. I'd also suggest listening to the Teach Starter podcast, as well as obviously all of the Teachers Talk Radio podcasts that are out there. There's some great advice across all of the back shows. Go and have a listen. There's one called For the Love of Teaching, which is by Teach Starter. And they have a checklist which helps you monitor your mental well-being and to help remind you of the importance of mindfulness. The next thing I'd say in terms of thriving is, how do you manage your teaching schedule and lesson planning with the added challenge of unsocial working hours? Keep a diary of your teaching week on paper or with an app. Noting your thoughts can help you to understand how your work and state of mind influence each other and when you work more effectively. For example, you might notice that you're tired after your classes each Wednesday and that you're also less prepared for your classes on Thursday. Then you can plan your work accordingly. If you prefer an app to a paper diary, you could use Wobot. It's like a diary app that tracks your mood. It encourages users to reframe their thoughts, understanding subconscious biases and challenging negative messages. And these are skills taken from cognitive behavior therapy. I'd also say be selective about how and how much you plan your lessons. In my experiences, I plan more effectively if I keep my work and my personal space separate. So I don't like to work at home. That was the biggest impact for me of the pandemic, that my house was then also my classroom, my office, my workspace. And I don't like that. I keep a separation of work at church and state. My school work stays at school. The things I do outside of school, so my blog and the radio here, these are all part of things that help me to channel my energy for work outside of work. And actually, I enjoy doing these creative projects. And so therefore, they actually help with my well-being rather than hinder it. Invest time in preparing an engaging lesson rather than attempting to save time by setting assignments or tests. Learners will have more chance to put language into practice, and you will not have extra marking to take home. Utilize peer and self-assessment within your lessons, and prioritize preparing materials and activities for groups that need extra support to reach their academic objectives. One way to reduce planning time is to involve your learners in the process if you can. So give them realistic options and ask them which activities and tasks they prefer. This will save you having to make all the decisions and shows that you respect their time as well as your own. Try a less is more week and then reflect on it. What did your learners get out of the classes, and just as importantly, how do you feel now? You can also try an online wall planner app like Planboard. It's designed for teachers and you can access it from your phone, your tablet or your desktop. It's a practical tool for teachers because it allows you to plan the academic year in terms, organise content into personalised units for each group, add and reuse lesson plan templates, and move classes to the following or the previous day. You can even download the class plans as templates and share them with colleagues if you want to. The next thing I'd say is to get professional assistance when you need it. At work, you should be able to talk to your manager or a health and wellbeing officer. If you're seriously concerned about your workload or stress, then you should seek professional help. You might be able to take advantage, as I said earlier, of an employee assistance programme. And there is, of course, Education Support UK, who are there for teachers, by teachers. So get in touch with those. You are not alone. There are thousands of us out here who are willing and able to talk to you about these things. And whilst we may not be able to solve any issues that you're having, we can be a listening ear. The next thing came out from Twitter. Lucy actually said, being able to go for a wee, that would help me to thrive at school. And yes, I think some of us are dreading going back to school and not being able to just go to the toilet and have that break when we need to, but take break and lunchtime. That's another piece of advice. When we ignore our body's natural rhythms, we create a state of chronic jet lag for ourselves, which over time can lead to depression, anxiety, or stress-related diseases. At some point today, in your school day, take a good old-fashioned break. The only rule is that your break must be playful or restful. Anything that you have to do anyway, shower, eat lunch, that doesn't count, nor does anything that exists on a to-do list. Just got to sit, do whatever it is that is not part of your daily routine. Sometimes we need to train our brains to do as much as possible on autopilot. Now, using our brain's natural ability to run on autopilot lets our unconscious brain do work that we would otherwise get done through sheer discipline, self-discipline, or will. But we don't want to do everything on autopilot, but just some of those everyday tasks on autopilot can actually help our brain sort of reset itself and recoup some of that energy. And reduce as much as possible the unnecessary emotional, mental, and physical constraints that weigh you down. One way to do this is to decide on your top 5 priorities and say no to everything else. Another step is to stop multitasking, because it uses more energy and time than single tasking does. Focus on one thing only, complete it, and then move on to the next task. You'll feel more productive and you'll get things done quicker. Lots coming through again on Twitter about being able to share things with colleagues and building those relationships. Check in, learn from each other. I feel, says Lucy, that gets lost in the mix once term is in full swing. And I think Lucy's absolutely right there, is that we don't always make time just to talk to each other during the school day. S. Hancock on Twitter also said, being able to trust people, especially senior staff. And that's a tough one to discuss really without knowing people's context. But yeah, you need to feel valued. You need to be able to think that you can talk to your senior colleagues, your line managers. And the key to happiness, some would say, is love. And our relationships make us feel more satisfied with our lives, healthier and more successful. Some people are quite happy on their own, and that's okay. But you still need to have some human interaction and some support network. So make sure that you're engaging with them. Now, what you can do is to start to foster positive feelings towards the people around you. Say hello, smile, just chat, and cope with the ways that people are annoying or disappointing and hurtful in a way that doesn't further damage your relationship. Sometimes people might come across as rude. They don't mean to be. It's just part of who they are. Let me know what you think. What do you think about building relationships within school? Why are they important? How are they important? And how can we foster those positive relationships? I'm going to take a quick break for the news, and we'll be back after this.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
High levels of COVID infections are likely by the end of the summer. This is the prediction of one group of advisors who, according to a report in the Evening Standard, are warning government to plan for this outcome. The Scientific Pandemic Influenza Group on Modelling have suggested that the current vaccine rollout, which extends only to those 16 years old and above, will have made almost no difference to many pupils. Currently, only 12 to 15-year-olds who are most at risk from COVID or who live with people at risk are eligible to be jabbed. In light of the warnings, the leader of the largest UK teaching union has called for the Education Secretary to support schools to consider face coverings from day one of the new term. Kevin Courtney of the NEU said it was only right to recognise that a large percentage of schools would not be vaccinated. The experts say it is highly likely there will be an exponential increase of the virus amongst school-aged children, and they highlight the fact that fewer mitigations, such as bubbles and strict rules on isolating, will be in place. The report was issued on the 11th of August, but with cases in Scotland rising and the increase being partly attributed to schools returning earlier this month, all eyes will be on the return of pupils across England, Wales and Northern Ireland. Union leaders continue to express concern about the possibility of large numbers of cases and the disruption it could bring to the education of large numbers of pupils for a third academic year. The view that the current government frameworks mapping a series of measures in response to outbreaks of the virus that do not go far enough is also reported to be shared by Julie McCulloch, Director of Policy for ASCL. She describes the report from advisors as extremely worrying and a recipe for chaos. She also pointed out that it would now be helpful to hear from the JCVI sooner rather than later about the possible offer of vaccines to 12 to 15-year-olds. In Scotland, the Scotsman newspaper is reporting that health services are ready to move quickly if the go-ahead is given to vaccinate some under 16s. This is as Scotland recorded 6,835 cases in the 24 hours to Friday, a daily record. In other news from Scotland, the opportunity to become head teacher of the UK's most remote school is now available. Ruth Stout, current head of Fair Isle Primary, has spoken to the TES about stepping down as head of the school, which is the most geographically remote inhabited island in the UK. The school currently only has 3 pupils on roll, but offers places to all children up to the age of 12. In a TES Scotland podcast, Ruth Stout discusses the highs and lows of being a head teacher on such a small island, one that is most famous for the intricate knitwear which shares its name. Anyone wishing to apply for the post should have flexibility in mind, as multitasking is common for both staff and pupils, and island life can be unpredictable and challenging. However, Mrs. Stamp was quick to point out that many experiences you just wouldn't get anywhere else. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio Weekend News.
Well, I don't know about you, but I might consider that head teacher's position in the Highlands there, in a remote island. Sounds interesting. What about you? I'm not sure whether that would help me with my well-being, being so isolated. Maybe it would. Who knows? Being able to thrive. Okay, so moving on to the final half an hour of the show. Thank you all for listening. If you've got any further comments about how you plan to thrive as a teacher this year, please drop them in the chat. I look forward to seeing what they are. My final points coming up is that I'd say tolerate some discomfort. Life will always include disappointment, failure, and risk, but how we deal with that is key to thriving rather than surviving. So tolerate the discomfort that comes from difficulty and challenge that are inherent in pursuing mastery, which we're all after. Mastery ultimately makes hard things easy, but we're always striving for that perfectionism as teachers. Be able to cope with the discomfort that's associated with vulnerability by becoming brave enough to follow your passion and purpose instead of the crowd. If you're going into your training year or your ECT year, you'll have those nerves, those feelings of anxiety or anxiousness about observations and all the things that come with those induction and training years. But embrace that, use it, channel it into positive energy, and develop a plan for bouncing back when the going gets tough, when you don't get the results that you're wanting. You know, things happen. It's okay. Mistakes will happen. That's okay. It's how you deal with them that's important, that enable you to thrive. Now, Nick Marks did a TED talk on the Happy Planet Index, and you can find that on YouTube. Just do a quick search. But there are 5 things you should do every day to be happier. Connect is the first one. Social relationships are the most important cornerstones of your life. Make sure you build them and invest time and energy to maintain them. These will help you to thrive rather than survive. Be active. Again, comes out commonly through all the advice and tips that come out of teaching and the wider society. They'll forget sometimes that not everybody is a teacher. But yes, being active. Exercise is the fastest way out of a bad mood. This doesn't need to be extensive. Could just taking a short walk outside can help. The next tip is to take notice. How aware are you of things going on around the world? Make sure you know what's going on in your environment and with the people around you. When you're at home with your family on an evening, are you present in the moment, or are you distracted by your phone, your emails, your work? Are you just coasting through with your partner, with your family, and not really being there? Be present in the moment. The next thing, and as teachers always do, is to keep learning. Strive to learn throughout your whole life. It doesn't always have to be education or knowledge-based. Just be curious. Take up a new hobby. Find a new interest that you can get developed in. I do like to make jewelry. I also do the odd bit of cross-stitch, but generally speaking, I'm a tinkerer on my computer with various programs and bits and pieces, but that's the perils of being a computer scientist, I suppose. The last thing is give. Generosity, altruism, and compassion are all hardwired to the reward mechanism in our brains. So we feel good when we give to others. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about donating things to other people. It's about giving time. Giving time to other people, going and helping someone else out, help someone move house, help someone paint something, go and help someone bake something. Just go and be involved in other people. It's going to also help distract your mind from your own things. Teaching is a challenging profession, but it's also an incredibly rewarding one. So we are all part of a profession with hundreds of thousands of people who can support you here and across the world. So taking care of ourselves is also vital. Now, there are a few places online where you can get advice and tips if you're feeling burnt out or you're feeling the pressure. So Schools in Mind is a free network for school staff and allied professionals, which shares practical, academic and clinical expertise regarding the wellbeing and mental health issues that affect schools. And Education Support are the only UK charity dedicated to supporting the mental health and wellbeing of education staff in schools, colleges and universities. Okay, so lots and tips of advice there. Some final thoughts from Twitter. Sobia said, making sure that others carry their own load. Lots of leaders like to delegate and focus on their own career development. I've seen teachers work hard whilst others are studying for masters or other activities. And yet I agree with that to a certain point. Sometimes people, our leaders, our senior staff can over delegate. I like to think that as a leader myself, I've got a balanced amount of delegation as to what I expect my staff to do. But this is where saying no comes into play. Comparing ourselves to others is a natural human thing to do. But we need to make sure that we recognise just because somebody looks like they've got it all and they're doing it all, doesn't necessarily mean they are. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are thriving. They may just be surviving. Maybe their delegation is the way that they survive the day. Who knows? So going back to thriving versus surviving. What do you think? Are you thriving or surviving? Surviving, as I said earlier, is continuing to live or exist, especially in spite of danger or hardship, whereas thrive means to prosper, be fortunate or successful, or to grow or develop vigorously and to flourish. How can you help yourself thrive? When you get home from work, are you enthusiastic? Are you happy? Are you excited? Are you invigorated by your day? Or are you just happy to have made it through? Are stress and worry rather than joy, peace and passion fueling your life? Have a think. How many of us say, oh, thank goodness it's Friday, and aren't using positive language and positive affirmations about our day and about our life? And I think it's really important when we're talking about thriving as a teacher, not to get bogged down in the negativity. It's very easy to get into that moan culture. Now, offloading what's bothering you during the week or during the day is perfectly healthy and perfectly normal. But are you constantly seeing the negative? Do you walk around a little bit like Sadness from the film Inside Out, blue, gloomy, and just wondering everything's bad? Are you a puddleglum? Are you an Eeyore? Who are you during the school day? Because if you are these sorts of characters, and you had that little black rain cloud following you around all the day, then that can permeate your relationships with other people. I'm sure at some point we've all been there. I know I certainly have. I've been at a point where I felt overwhelmed. I felt just getting through the days and I've brought myself out of that now. But it then gets to a point where people just see you as a negative energy, as a negative force. So we need to make sure that we're spreading positivity to enable others to thrive. Let me know what you think. I think other parts of thriving during as a teacher is all about developing yourself and being able to develop as a teacher, to progress up the ranks if that's what you're wanting to do. And it's not all about promotions, it's not all about getting to the next stage, but it's about feeling that you are empowered, you're able to do more within your job. When you're starting out as either an ECT or maybe you're moving schools for a new position, don't be in a rush. Take the time to actually perfect what you're doing, being able to actually ensure that your teaching practice is the very best it can be before you then start to look at what is the next step. If you're constantly chasing the next step, you're not content, you're not happy where you are now. So be present in the moment and be working on what it is that you are doing right now. A lot of thriving and surviving tips are generally aimed at our early career colleagues, but it's just as important for those who are many years in I'd rather not say how many years I am now in teaching. It's been a very long time. I'm starting to feel like a bit of a grandma. This year, I think some of the trainee teachers I am old enough to be their mother, and that upsets me quite immensely. I'm starting to realise that now, oh, maybe I am a little bit older than I thought I was. I don't feel this old, but I certainly, according to my birth certificate, am. But how do we help our other colleagues to thrive whilst we are also thriving? All sorts of things to think about. So finally, to summarise, thank you for joining us on the show today, and thank you for all your comments, particularly when it comes to thinking about boundaries. Boundaries are really important here in terms of helping not only your mental health and well-being, but helping you to thrive. If you're putting those boundaries in place for emails, WhatsApp conversations, all of those sorts of communications that might come out of work hours, put those boundaries in place. It's okay to say no. It's okay not to join the groups. Absolutely fine. Just remember that in an emergency situation, it's a good idea to have at least the phone number of your colleagues, because if you can't get to your emails or you can't do something, you're not with your computer, it's always good to have a telephone number to ring or to text. Think about how you can utilize and understand the culture and the context of your school and your students. How will that impact or affect your lessons? Can your children, can your students see themselves in what you're delivering? Can they see themselves in your resources? Understanding the context and the culture of your school can really help you to thrive, because it will make your lessons run more smoothly, because your students will feel valued. The next thing, and arguably one of the most important things, is building relationships with your colleagues, with your mentors, but also with people outside of your school. Every teacher needs that other teacher colleague who works at a different school. Maybe it's somebody you've worked with previously, you've both gone to different schools and you're still friends with them, but make sure you've got those people who are outside of your school bubble to be able to talk to. Build in that all-important you time, making sure that you've got time just for you, and that you're also building in time for your family and friends, whatever your circumstances are. The next thing is to think about how you prevent burnout, understanding what it is and recognizing the signs and symptoms when you're getting to that stage, and making sure that you are not on the constantly in survive mode, more moving into thrive mode. I think it's important to suggest that as teachers, at some point during the year, we will be in survive mode. There will always be times in the year where we are feeling the pressure, where we're just happy to have gotten through another day. But if that's every day, that's where it's a problem. You want to be more in the thrive section than the survive section. Think about and remember that first week exhaustion that we're likely to get as teachers, and plan for that. I have got next weekend absolutely clear. I'm not going anywhere, I'm not doing anything, because I'm back to work on, my school is back to work on Wednesday. I'm back in on Thursday. We are going to feel exhausted. Fresh as flu. I say this to trainees in ECTs quite often, and they look at me like I'm speaking in a foreign language, but you will find, particularly if you're moving schools, that you've got new germs to get used to. After a while, you become immune to the new children that you are working with. But it's a common thing that by October half term, all of that stress, that tension, that almost fight mode to stay healthy throughout that half term, you relax, and then all of a sudden the cold hits, you feel exhausted. Just prepare for that. There's lots of things you can do to make sure that you're full of energy. I spoke before as well about the January to February half term as the long night. Now, it is, in my opinion, and I am a secondary teacher, so I do exam season. I still think that January term, spring term